Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Fifth Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Jones, the Bluff City Cowboy, coming to you live from Memphis, Tennessee. And we have a great episode lined up for you guys tonight. Tonight is what I like to call my salary cap show. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a caveat before we get into it. I'm sure you guys know I'm a bit of a football nerd, so I like researching stuff. I like looking into certain things. So this episode may not be for everybody, but I hope you guys stick with me because you will definitely learn something by the end of this show about the salary cap, how it works, and as well as how it will affect our free agency moving forward. So thank you guys for joining us right now. I see the views are starting to go up pretty quickly. So if you're watching right now, be sure to like this broadcast wherever you're watching it from. Also, be sure to share it to your personal page, share it to your favorite Facebook group. I'm going to give a lot of information out today about the salary cap that a lot of people don't know, a lot of misconceptions. So I think this will be some good information to share with the rest of Cowboys Nation. Also, if you haven't done so already, be sure to join. Be sure to join the DC4L network. They have two Facebook groups. Just type in DC4L on Facebook and you'll find them. Wealth of knowledge, a lot of great fans. I'm on the admin group, so I can tell you firsthand, we do a full screening of all potential members. So we make sure that it's the best of the best. We try to have engaging dialogue without any name calling, without any derogatory terms. So be sure to join that if you haven't done so already. Also, if you haven't done so, DC4L now has a YouTube group. So you can go to YouTube, type in DC4L, hit that subscribe button. And while you're there, you can also go to my YouTube channel, bluffcitycowboys.com. I just put it in the comments. So if you got a little bit of time right now or at the end of the show, hit that button, hit that subscribe button. Also hit that bell so that you will be alerted for any future Bluff City Cowboys or Fifth Quarter podcast episodes. So I got all my house cleaning out of the way. Thank you guys for joining us. I see the views are still going up, so I appreciate that. Again, if you haven't done so already, we try to make this an interactive show. So get in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions. I see I got my guy Jeff joining me. Jeff, appreciate you tuning in as always. I see we have a Facebook user, whoever that may be. Be sure to give Facebook and StreamYard the authority to use your name and face so that I can know who you are. I also see I got my guy Mendoza joining us from YouTube as always. Appreciate your support as well. And we got Cy Witherspoon, who's becoming a regular, and also on the admin team. So Cy Witherspoon, thank you for joining us. Definitely appreciate you tuning in also. So I see the views have gone up quite a bit since I started. So I want to say this again. This episode may not be for everybody because I'm going to do a lot of talking about numbers, the salary cap, what it is, how it affects player salaries, and the different ways that teams can manipulate it. So I hope that at least some of you guys get something from this. At a minimum, you're going to hear a lot of terms over social media. You're already starting to hear them. This will give you a good basis to know what those are, and you'll be able to call BS when you hear certain things. I see we got Ray Dean joining us. Ray Dean, thank you for tuning in. I think Zimmer will be great. The D will be massively better. I definitely agree with that. I said it on the last show. In my opinion, I personally don't care who the defensive coordinator is. Zimmer's a good one, but I don't care because I don't think they're going to be here for long. But what I really want is somebody who's going to come in. They're going to emphasize defensive tackles. They're going to emphasize linebackers, and they're going to emphasize safeties. Mike Zimmer emphasizes all three of those. He also likes the blitz from the A gap with his linebackers, which means Micah Parsons will probably be lined up inside even more. And that's even better for our defense. So great hire by Mike Zimmer. I see we got free agent questions coming in. We're going to do a full free agent show in a couple of weeks, but we'll touch base on these right now. First question is, can we afford King Henry? That's the real question, by Orlando Mata. And then also Ray Dean following up with that one. Do I think the Cowboys will get Henry or Barkley? Now, in my opinion, the running back market is not going to be as expensive as Twitter and the media makes it out to be. I think there may be one running back who can get $10 million a year. I don't know who that's going to be. My guess would probably be Houston would be the team that pays it because they have a ton of cap space and they have a lot of young guys. And the best thing for a young quarterback is a strong running game. So I expect Houston to be the one to be the big spenders at running back. Everybody else, they either have a guy or they have two guys or they just don't value the running back position. So I think you're going to have one guy get 10 million. Everybody else is going to get about 7 million or less. And I'm leaning a lot towards less. That includes Derrick Henry. So in my opinion, I would say yes. I think we have the ability to get Henry. Barkley may be that $10 million guy, but if he's not, we definitely have a chance to get him as well. So when we talk about the free agent show, we're going to do a deep dive into their running back position. I've alluded to it several times on this show. I think this is probably going to be the deepest free agent running back group in the history of the NFL, honestly. There are going to be 10 legit running back ones who are going to be available, and I think they'll all be available for $7 million or less. So even if we don't get Henry or Barkley, you still have a Josh Jacobs, you still have an Austin Eckler, you still have guys like that who will be available. Jeff says Zimmer needs to emphasize discipline. I think he will, Jeff. The only problem is, like I said, he only has 1 year, maybe two. If Mike McCarthy comes back and signs as the coach next year, which in my opinion, I don't think that's going to be the case. If we sign a new coach, and I haven't talked about this before, let's look at who the available coaches are for next year. You got Bill Belichick. You've got the coach from Tennessee. You've got the coach from Detroit who didn't take a job this year. And then there's going to be some other hotshot coordinator who jumps up as a coach. So let's say it's Bill Belichick. If Bill Belichick comes in, he likes to call his own defense. So Zimmer's out automatically. The coach from Tennessee, and I'm sorry, when I go live, I always forget names. Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel is a defensive guy. He likes to run a 3-4. If he's hired as the head coach, he's not keeping Zimmer. He's bringing his guy in. He's implementing the 3-4. If the guy Ben Johnson from the Lions comes in, he's a young guy. He's innovative. If they get him, I think he's going to want to bring in his own young staff to build around. So that's another person. Zimmer's out. So I don't think Zimmer's going to be here for long unless Mike McCarthy resigns for a big contract, which I doubt happens. So he needs to emphasize discipline, but I think he only has 1 year to do it. Jeff, Zach Moss. I would take Zach Moss as a consolation prize, along with another running back. In my opinion, I think we're going to get 2 running backs in free agency this year because there are so many. There are not a lot of jobs available, and every team sees that we have a definite need at the running back position more than others. So I think we're going to get 2 running backs, big name, small name. All right, guys, so we're at 10 minutes. Keep those questions coming in. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get into it. This is going to be our salary cap show. So I'm going to give you guys a rundown of what the salary cap is, how it could be manipulated, and some of the ways that the Cowboys will manipulate it this year. So first off, before we get into anything else, we have to talk about what the salary cap is, because this is something that I see fans get wrong all the time. So basically, the NFL salary cap It's a composition of all the funds that the league brings in from the prior year. It's not based off this year, it's based off last year. So the salary cap is composed of three different aspects or revenue chains. The first one is the biggest revenue chain, and that's TV deals. The NFL sells their rights to air games or to use clips from games to all media networks. So that includes ESPN, Fox, CBS, Amazon, YouTube, Nickelodeon, Entertainment Tonight, HGTV. Anybody who shows a clip of an NFL game or they air a game, they have to pay the NFL. All of that money is collected and that money is put into a pot. So, for example, Amazon signed a 10-year, $20 billion contract with the NFL. That means for the next 10 years, that's $2 billion a year. $2 billion a year is going to be allocated between the 32 NFL teams as well as the players that compose those 32 teams. That is the biggest chunk of money the NFL receives. That chunk probably makes up about 70% of all the money in the salary cap. The next biggest portion is licensing and merchandising. So, a misconception that fans don't know: all teams and all players, as part of the collective bargaining agreement, must sign over their rights to their names, their image, and their likeness. That's put into a pot. And when someone says, I want to sell Dak Prescott jerseys, they don't negotiate with the Cowboys. They negotiate with the NFL in general. They pay for the rights to those names. They sell the jerseys. Um, Let me give you an example of something people don't know. Like if you look behind me, you guys see I have two jerseys. As you can see, these are not official Cowboy jerseys. They're in the Cowboys colors, but they're not Cowboys jerseys. The reason for that is players, even though they sign over their rights, they can still use their own name, image, and likeness. The problem is because the person who uses their name hasn't paid the NFL, they're not allowed to use NFL jerseys. So that's why if you own a jersey like up here and you see it's in Cowboys colors, but it's not Cowboys, and it's folded in a way to see the name and the number and the signature, that's because whoever has that jersey, they did not pay the NFL for the rights to use NFL jerseys. That's why if you have a jersey signed that's an authentic NFL jersey, is way more expensive. Another thing, if you watch a commercial, and pay attention to this because I don't think a lot of people do. If you watch a commercial on TV and you see like a Dak Prescott or the Cam Newton commercials or Campbell Soup, when you see them on a football field, most of the time you won't see them wearing the jersey of their team. They're wearing a generic jersey. Again, because those advertisers can pay for the player, but they didn't pay the NFL to use their likeness. So just a tidbit I wanted to throw in there while I was on the topic. So second thing, licensing, merchandising. All the teams sell their rights to Fathead or to Nike or to Under Armour, what have you. Those organizations pay a fee to use any player's name, any team they want. That money goes into a pot. That money split out. The last portion is ticket sales. Every team has to give 40% of their ticket sales to the NFL family. All of that money is put into a pot and is split evenly. So when you hear certain media people saying, well, if you want to hit the team's pockets, stop going to games, that will not affect the teams because they're still going to get a cut of 40% of the ticket sales from all the other 31 teams in the NFL. And on top of that, ticket sales make up the smallest portion of the salary cap. So these are the three factors that make up the NFL salary cap. So like I said before, they take all this money. It goes into a pot. It's split 50-50 between the owners and the players. The owners get one whole share by themselves individually. The owners have to share their share, and that is what the salary cap is. So if the salary cap is $240 million, that means last year the NFL collected $500 million. $250 million went to the owner of each team. $250 million gets allocated through the salary cap to all the players in the NFL. So that's basically where the salary cap comes from. It's not just some arbitrary number they make up. There's a formula behind it based off of the money that is received throughout the different revenue streams. So now I want to talk about some terms that are normally thrown out when you're dealing with the salary cap. And if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, because I know some of this stuff can get confusing. It may not be the cup of tea for some of you guys, but I feel like it's something that needs to be talked about just for basic football knowledge in the offseason. So now I want to just touch base on contract restructures. So another misconception. Players' contracts are paid out through the regular season through 18 equal payments. What a restructure does is it allows the players to get their money in the offseason. And Jeff, good question. I'll get to that in a minute. I see I got my guy Dom in the comments. Dom, thank you for joining us. Today I'm talking about salary cap and just all the different mechanisms that make up it. So I'm at contract restructures right now. So if a player does a contract restructure in the offseason, if their contract is $10 million, instead of getting that $10 million allocated equally over 18 weeks, they get the money up front whenever they do the restructure. So they're not helping the team. They're getting their money up front. The restructure is then spread out over 5 years, just like signing bonus. And the NFL allows teams to spread out that money over 5 years. And if a player's contract does not have 5 years, then a team can add dummy years to the end of the contract. And we see that all the time with the Cowboys. We're going to go through a couple examples when we get to the end of the show, where a player will have a restructure and then the team will add dummy years to allocate it out. It's a mechanism they use to lower the salary cap for any given year. All right, so I want to give you guys an example of what a contract restructure looks like, just so it's not all words. You can see kind of real life applications. So here's an example. Let's say this is a certain player's contract. In 2023, he's going to make $16 million. His signing bonus is $15 million. It's spread out over the life of the contract, 3 years. So let's assume the team plans to restructure his contract in 2023. So you see in 2023 is $16 million for his cap hit. Whenever a team does a restructure, they normally take all the money he was owed for the year and they take it down to $1 million, which is the league minimum for a veteran, roughly. Then they take that money and they spread it out through the signing bonus. So as you guys can see, at first the signing bonus started off at $5 million. Now you add $3 million to each year, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, because he went from $16 million to $1 million. $15 million was restructured. They spread it out over 5 years. Because his contract did not have 5 years in it, they added 2 dummy years to allocate that amount. So I just want to show you guys that I'm sure you guys see this stuff all the time when you're talking about the Cowboys. It's going to be applicable in a minute. We're going to talk about some actual Dallas Cowboys players' contracts. So now we talked about contract restructures. Now I want to go into dead cap space. You guys hear the phrase dead cap space all the time. I want to give you an idea of what that means. So, what is dead cap space? When teams sign players to a contract, we just talked about it. The player's contract, the signing bonus is spread over the life of the contract. But when a player is cut or traded before the end of that contract, the team has to report that signing bonus into the contract during the year he was cut or traded. So, Jeff, can you elaborate on your question? You asked, what about salary cap hits? How were they allocated? Elaborate on what you mean by how they are allocated. Let me know what you mean in the comments. All right, so dead cap space, player signs a contract. If he's cut, that signing bonus is accelerated into the current year. And I got an example for you guys. So, dead cap space. Let's say a player signs a 4-year contract. Let's say in year 2, the team decides, you know what, this player is not working out. We want to just cut our losses and let him go. Or he's being a malcontent on the team and we have an offer to trade him for a high pick. What the team will do is in 2024, let's say they cut him or trade him. That means the $5 million from that year, the next year, and the next year all gets rolled into 2024. That becomes dead money that the team has to report in 2024. So the total cap hit would have been 17 million. The 12 million gets taken off because they traded them. They still have to report 15 million during that year. So Jeff asked the question, when a player has a salary cap hit, what determines his hit? That's a good question. I had a screen for that, but I don't see it right now. So I'll just explain it to you what that means. So basically, Jeff, when a player has a salary cap hit, that cap hit is composed of 3 different things. Number 1 is composed of their salary. So if a player is getting paid $13 million that year, that's included in there. Then it includes their portion of their signing bonus, just like right here. His base salary is $12 million. His signing bonus was not this one, that's not a good one. 2023 right here. His salary was $16 million. His signing bonus was $15 million. So it was spread 5, 5, and 5. So his total cap hit would be the $16 million they owe him this year, plus the $5 million that is allocated from his signing bonus. His cap hit will be $21 million during that year. Now, you also have option bonuses and roster bonuses and stuff like that. Those things also come into play, but we'll talk about that later in the show. But generally, base salary plus signing bonus, or base salary plus bonuses, equals salary cap hit. So Don pretty much sums up the same way. Base salary, signing bonus divided up over the life, any other bonuses, option bonuses, roster bonuses, things of that nature. All right, so we're at dead cap space. So as you guys can see right here, if the player was cut in 2024, he would have $15 million that has to be reported in 2024 because he was cut. Now, this is a term. I'm saying all this to lead up to this thing right here. This is a term that everybody talks about this time of year, and that is the post-June 1 designation. Michael Gallup in particular. I'll just say the name. So, like I just said, when a player is cut or traded, their dead money immediately hits the cap. But the NFL put a stipulation in. If a player is cut after June 1st, only their current cap hit is rolled into that year as dead money, not the entire dead money they have over all their years. So teams can make a June 1 cut, and they can cut a player now to avoid a cap hit. And there are reasons for that. And Michael Gallup's an example. This is a rough example of what happened. So let's say you have a player, he signed a 5-year contract, right? Now the team guaranteed $10 million of his contract on the third day of the league year. So that means if the league year starts on March 1st, by March 5th, $10 million of his salary guarantees. Now, if the team feels like I don't want to pay that, they want to cut him before they get to that 5th day. The problem with that is if they cut him, then they have to take in $18 million in signing bonus. 9 for this year, 9 for next year. What a post June 1 designation does is if they decide to cut that player on March 1st or March 2nd, they don't have to take this full 18. They can treat it as if he was cut after June 1st. So they only take the $9 million hit in 2024 as a cap hit. And that provides a significant savings. Now, that does leave dead money in the subsequent year, but it helps the team manage their cap hits in the current year that they're dealing in. All right, so now I want to go to some real life applications just so you guys can kind of see how this stuff works for the Cowboys. So I want to take you guys to a website that I love to use whenever I have salary cap questions. So make sure to put in your notes. If you want to know anything about the salary cap, go to spotrack.com. Spotrack.com is my number one site to go to whenever I have questions about a player's contract or their salary. So this is spotrack.com. See if we have a question in the comments. Is there a limit on post June 1 cuts? I believe the limit is 2, Jeff, if I'm not mistaken. You can only have 2 post June 1 designations per team. So if you guys want to check out spotrack.com, it's a great site to go to. As you can see right here on this screen, you can pretty much pull up any position. You can see who the highest paid players are at that position. You can see how much total cash they received. You can see what their base salary is. You can see how long their contracts are. Now, this is what they don't use this in particular, but when teams negotiate contracts, this is what they do to determine how much to pay a player. They look at where the players they're representing, they look at how much people who are comparable to them are making. And if you don't want to go league wide, you can always trickle down to a specific team. So go to the Cowboys and sorry guys, had to go to plan B. My main computer went out, but luckily I always keep my number 2 computer lined up with me. I'm gonna try to pull it back up because I had a lot of stuff to go over with Spot Rack. So I appreciate you guys who stuck with me during that lag. I was gonna show you guys a little bit about what Spot Rack does, but I guess we'll skip over that right now. And now I will go over to some real world applications dealing with the Cowboys. So I was going to show you guys on Spot Rack that the team currently they're $16 million below the cap. So they're at a negative 16 right now. So I made a nice little chart that I was gonna go over just to show you guys our total cap space. So as you can see, what I did was I pulled up the 9 largest salaries for the Dallas Cowboys. So these are the only contracts that we are able to manipulate to affect that total cap space of negative 16 million. So what I was going to do is I was going to use some of the stuff that we just talked about to show you guys how the cap can be manipulated using post June 1s, restructures, and things of that nature. So I'm logging back into my computer right now, so hopefully I can go back to my other screen. Bear with me for 1 second, guys, while I try to load this up. All right, so I'm back in now, guys. So I wanted to show you guys this really good information. As you can see, our cap space right now is negative 16 million. So if I go over to Spot Rack, the salary cap right now, the salary cap has not, good question, Jeff. The salary cap right now has not been determined for this year, but based off of previous projections, they are estimating that the salary cap will be $242 million. And that's what I based my $16 million negative $16 million cap hit off of, or cap space off of. All right. So if I can pull back up. Okay, so these are the top 9 salaries. So I want to go through each one of them to show you how we can manipulate cap space. Yeah, we're 16 million over right now, Jeff. That's the question. We are 16 million over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how we can get to $20 million in cap space without touching Dak Prescott's contract, which is the highest contract that we have listed right here. So the first thing we're going to do, and if you have any other questions, feel free to get them in the comments. The first thing we're going to do are the easy ones. So the easiest one to manipulate is the restructures. That would be Trayvon Diggs and Terrence Steele, because as you can see, they have the longest amount of years left on their contract, which means we can spread out the money the easiest over their contracts. So we'll start with Trayvon Diggs first. So remember what I said before. Teams, when they restructure, they take the base salary from wherever it is all the way down to $1 million, and then they spread the rest over the life of the contract. So as you guys can see, Trayvon Diggs has 4 years on his deal. He has $11 million. So we're going to take off $10 million from his deal. And this is the exact thing the Dallas Cowboys are going to do. So they're going to take this from $11 million to $1 million. Now, what they're also not going to do, the restructure section is when they restructure a contract, that money goes right here. So we're going to take 10 million that we just restructured, divided by 5 years. I think I forgot a zero. So we're going to take 10 million divided by 5 years. So as you can see, just from Trayvon Diggs restructure, we just went from 16 million to 8 million. And Dom is saying, what's promising is there's a buzz that the salary cap may go upwards to 250. That will be an additional $8 million, which means Dallas is only $8 million over. So that would mean if we restructure Trayvon Diggs, which we are as a team, we will go from minus 16 million to zero. So we be at zero. All right. So now we took care of Trayvon Diggs. Now we're going to go to Terrence Steele because he has 4 years left on his deal. So we go to Terrence Steele. That's 7.25 million. That means we're going to take 6.25 million and we're going to allocate it over 5 years. Add that dummy year. So Jeff says add a dummy year and spread 2 million across 5 years. That's exactly what we do, Jeff. We do it all the time. It's a common trait with the Cowboys. So we take this down to 1 million. Then we go to the restructure column and we take 6.25 million divided by 5. So now we're only $3 million over the cap with those two moves. Let me highlight them as we go so you guys can see who we've touched. Now, the next one we'll touch will be Michael Gallup. That's the one everybody wants to hit. Now, the problem with Michael Gallup is, remember what I said, if we cut him, we take in all the money that he's owed in dead cap, which is this number right here, 13,050 million. So that doesn't help us. So we have to do a post June 1. The problem with a post June 1 is that money does not hit the cap until after June 1st. So we're going to designate him a post June 1 cut, but that does not give us any extra cap money right now. It would only give us 800,000 right now. You take the cap hit column, 13,850 minus 13,050, and that would be the cap savings you would get until June 1st. So that'll help us after the draft when we sign our draft picks, but it won't help us at March 15th when the league year starts. But for the sake of argument, we'll go ahead and we'll skip over that one and come back to it. Now, looking at this, we've done restructures. Now we've done a restructure. Now we're gonna do a new contract. That new contract is gonna be CeeDee Lamb. That's the first new contract. He only has 1 year left on his deal. So there's really not a lot of wiggle room to restructure. So we have to give him a new contract. So I made a screen that kind of shows what I think his new contract will be based off of league estimates. So based off league estimates, the Cowboys do not have a tendency to reset the market. What the Cowboys normally do is they will put a player within the top 3 to 5 of their peers. So these are the top 3 receiver contracts in the NFL right now. 2 of them are at 4 years, 1 is at 5 years. Dallas loves signing 5-year contracts. I don't know why they let Dak get away with doing 4 years, but Dallas typically does 5 years or more for their contracts. You can go through the history. Every player we've signed has signed a 5, 6, 7-year contract. So the top 3 receiver contracts are Devontae Adams, 5 years, $125 million, $25 million a year. AJ Brown's making $25 million a year. Tyreek Hill's making $30 million a year. In my opinion, and I probably won't be accurate, but I think I'll be pretty close. They have to at least pay him what AJ Brown is making. So that would put him right at $25 million a year. Now, again, they like to sign guys to 5-year contracts. So I'm expecting CeeDee Lamb to sign a 5-year, $125 million contract. I don't think he's going to reset the market in terms of signing bonus. But again, AJ Brown's in our division. Jerry has this thing about he's not going to have a guy in his division making more than our guys. So I think CeeDee Lamb signing bonus is going to be $24 to $25 million. So I'm estimating CeeDee Lamb's contract to be 5 years, $125 million. with a $25 million signing bonus. Okay, Jeff asked the question, when you do a post-June cut, is the player cut and able to negotiate with other teams immediately, or do they have to wait? Good question, Jeff. That player's cut. He's not on the team anymore. The only thing is the league allows you to treat it like a post-June 1 cut. So the player's a free agent. He can sign wherever he likes. But for this team's perspective, because Michael Gallup is due $8 million of his contract is going to be guaranteed on the third day of the league year. So the team can't wait till June 1st to cut him. They have to cut him early or they're going to give him $8 million guaranteed. So they cut him. He's free to sign anywhere. After June 1st, we get that cap relief. All right, so this is what I think CeeDee Lamb's contract is going to be. So now let's go back to our chart. So I said his signing bonus is going to be $25 million, right? We spread that over 5 years. That makes his signing bonus $5 million. But now, also, whenever a player signs a contract in his first year, his base salary is almost always $1 million. That's always one of the incentives of signing a player to a deal. You get that small salary in year one. So now you guys see, we restructured Diggs, we restructured Steele, we signed CeeDee Lamb to a new contract, and now we have $8 million in cap space with those 3 moves. So I want you guys to remember this stuff when free agency and the offseason kicks off, because I promise you a lot of this stuff that you're hearing right now is gonna look and sound familiar. So we could stop right here. The team normally likes to have $8 to $10 million to play with when free agency opens. This will get them about to that point. But I'm going to go ahead to show you a couple of other moves that I think the team can make. So we have 4 guys on 1-year contracts. We could do Brandon Cooks, but that one won't give us the biggest bang for our buck. So I'm going to go to Zach Martin next because he has the largest one. As you guys can see, Zach Martin has a base salary of $18 million. So I've looked around at comparable salaries. Zach Martin is currently the number 2 paid guard in NFL. I think they're going to keep him in that range. So I looked at the top 5, and I looked at which player is over 30 years old who's in the top 5 to 7. And that led me to Brandon Scherf, who's a guard for the Jacksonville Jaguars. At the time of his contract signing, his contract was 3 years, $49 million, $15 million signing bonus. So I think that Zach Martin will probably be somewhere in that range when the team decides to sign him. I think they're going to do an extension. So I came up with a rough estimate of what I think Zach Martin's contract is going to be. So I think he's going to sign a contract very comparable to the contract that Brandon Scherf signed. And that contract is going to look something like this. He's currently 34 years old. He's still an all-pro. So I think they're going to give him a little bit more money than Brandon Scherf got at $49 million. I think they'll give him closer to 50, 51. I think the signing bonus will be about the same. Now, when you look at those numbers, you think, okay, we're signing Zach Martin to $17 million. He's going to kill our cap. But let's look at the actual mechanism of the contract. So if we sign Zach Martin to this contract that I think we're going to sign him to, only $1 million of his base salary will go into this year, along with the $24 million that's allocated over 3 years. So that takes you at $8 million signing bonus. All right, let's go back to our chart. So we're going to take Zach Martin we're going to take his signing bonus from 1,160,000. We're going to add $8 million to it. So that takes that number up. But remember, when we sign a player to a new deal, his base salary in year one is almost always $1 million. So we signed Zach Martin to a contract. Now we just got to $17 million worth of cap space. And these are all real world scenarios. This isn't stuff made up in Candyland. This is stuff that can actually happen. And Jeff says Zach is 34 years old. He's still a Pro Bowler. He's still an All-Pro. I think he has at least 2 more years. So I think they're going to reward him with a 3-year deal. And if you look at the contract going back to it, he'll probably never see year 3 of this deal because there'll be no guaranteed money in it. So that $19 million cap hit, that'll go away in year 3. Year 2, they may decide to do a restructure. You never know. But I think for this year, we're definitely gonna get that base salary down to $1 million. All right, so going back to our contract of salaries, as you can see, I just made 4 moves, still didn't touch Dak Prescott, and we just cleared up $17 million in cap space. So I really just wanted to show you guys this just so you can see. You keep hearing people talk about we have to sign Dak Prescott to a new contract in order to get cap space. That is not the case at all. We can make other moves that won't kill the team, that will actually benefit us, that will provide us tons of cap space. Let's do one more while we're here. We're at 48 minutes. I'll try to get out in an hour. So now we'll do DeMarcus Lawrence since he's next in line. DeMarcus Lawrence is 31 years old. His contract currently has no guarantees, and he's in the last year of his deal. That means basically the team can cut him today, and we would save $10 million. So if you guys wanted to, we can go back right here. If we wanted to do this with DeMarcus Lawrence and name him a post-June 1 cut, we could save $10 million and take this cap space to $28 million. That's option 1. Or we can give him a new contract that spreads out over 3 years. We make his signing bonus minimal so it doesn't kill the cap for the future, and then we guarantee a couple of years. So this is what that contract would look like if we sign him to 3 years, $31 million. Jeff asked the question, what if we touch Dak's contract? Let's see what that would look like. Let me go through DeMarcus Lawrence, and then I'll show you, Jeff. So remember the contract I just said for DeMarcus Lawrence. $9 million signing bonus over 3 years. So we would spread $9 million out over 3 years. His base salary this year would go from $10 million to $1 million. Now, let's go back to our chart real quick. So you see his signing bonus right here is $3 million. We would be adding $3 million more to it. So that would take this from $3 million to $6 million. But we would be reducing his base salary, what he gets paid this year, from $10 million to $1 million. So now I just got us over $23 million. All I did was restructure contracts of guys who are already going to be here for the long term. I signed CeeDee Lamb to a new contract, which makes him the second highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. And I signed Zach Martin and DeMarcus Lawrence to 3-year extensions. All of those things are doable. All of those things will give us $23 million in cap space, and we still have not touched Dak Prescott's contract. So we now have $23 million to play with when we go to free agency by making these 5 moves. And then after June 1st, we'll get another $8 million from Michael Gallup. So this is what the Cowboys do every year. And this is kind of the mechanism that you see go in place to open up cap space and help us sign free agents. And $23 million in cap space will put us somewhere in the top 7 to 8 in the NFL. So that's a lot of money to play around with. When we go to next week's show and the week after show, we're going to talk about some potential free agents who are on this team, and we're going to talk about what their potential contracts will be. We'll start off with $23 million in cap space, and I'll show you which players we decide we want to keep, what their contracts will look like, and how that'll affect the total cap space. So, Jeff, before I go, you asked the question, what if we touch Dak's contract? Let's see what that'll look like. We're going to touch it in 3 different ways, Jeff. We're going to touch Dak's contract in 3 different ways. The first way, a post-June 1 cut. So if we decided that we're going to just completely cut ties with Dak Prescott, definitely wouldn't happen. But we know we can't trade him. We would just want to get him off the team, and we cut him. The Cowboys would save roughly $34 million if they cut Dak Prescott. I know a lot of fans who hate Dak Prescott are saying, well, let's just cut him. But it's not going to be that easy to find a replacement this year. And that money wouldn't come until after June 1st. So if we were to cut Dak, that would remove this number, the roster bonus. We wouldn't have to pay it. That would also remove his base salary. So that would take us to $57 million in cap space if we were to cut Dak Prescott. 29 to 5. All right. Now, let's assume we do a restructure, Jeff. So remember, with a restructure, we're going to take his base salary of $29 million. We're going to take it all the way down to $1 million. Then we're going to allocate the remaining $28 million over 5 years. So we would take his base salary down to $1 million. And then we would take his restructure, 28 divided by 5. That would take us to $46 million in cap space. If we did what I just said we did, plus we restructure Dak Prescott's contract. Now, the last option we would have is we could sign Dak to a new deal. Now, with that one, I wish I could pull up Spot Rack, but while we're here, let me say this, because there's been a lot of chatter in the media about Dak Prescott is going to get $60 million. Dak Prescott is not going to get $60 million. There's no way that he's going to be able to negotiate that. There's no way the team would pay it. He's not worth it. The team knows it, and he knows it. If I could pull up Spot Rack again, I could take you guys through the top contract. So I'm going to pull up Spot Rack one more time, and we'll go through positions. This is why Dak Prescott won't get $60 million. So for you guys who keep up with teams outside of Dallas, you guys know that a lot of contracts were signed this year. So I got Spot Rack pulled up. Let me pull the screen up really quick. Players' contracts are based off of what players' contracts are normally based off of what they can negotiate based off of the talent around them at that same position. Dom says, I think he could get 57 per season. Thank you for joining us, Steve Franco. I see Amanda's joining us. Dom saying, if he reset the market. That's the question, Dom. If he reset the market. Personally, I don't think Dak's going to reset the market. I said at the beginning of the show, the Cowboys are not a reset the market type team. They are we're going to go comparable to what the market is. We've gone through this twice with Dak already. The first time when we sat on our thumbs and waited too long, and we ended up having to pay him all this money. And then the second time with Patrick Mahomes. Dak signed his contract after Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes at $45 million. Dak signed for 40. That's, to me, that's comparable. That put him at number 2 or number 3. I think if the team signs Dak to a contract, they're going to put him around number 2 or number 3 again. So let me pull up Spot Rack really quick just so I can show you guys a couple of the quarterback contracts around the NFL. And it's going to be kind of small. I apologize. So when I look at Dak's contract and I compare it to other quarterback contracts, I'm looking at the top 5 contract year average. So that's this column right here. Let me see if I can increase the size of this anymore. So I don't know if you guys can see this column or not. But if you look at this, this is the contract average per year. The highest paid quarterback in the NFL right now is Joe Burrow, making $55 million a year. If we were to believe that the team would reset the market, that means Dak would get more than $55 million a year. Personally, I don't think they would do that. And I feel like the media is just throwing out numbers to get fan hype over what we're going to do with Dak. Number 1 is Joe Burrow at $55 million. Number 2 is Justin Herbert at $52. Number 3 is Lamar Jackson at $52. Number 4 is Jalen Hurts at $51. Number 5 is Russell Wilson at $48. In my opinion, I don't think the team would go above Lamar Jackson. Even if you put up all the measurables you want, he's not worth more than Lamar Jackson. You can make an argument he's worth more than Justin Herbert has way more passing yards, more touchdowns, etc. I think Dak's number is somewhere between Jalen Hurts at 51, because remember what I said, 55. That's where I think Dak Prescott's contract number is going to be. So, yeah, I think Dak's number is going to be somewhere around 52 million. There's no way the highest paid quarterback in the NFL right now is at 55 million and they're going to take Dak to 60. There's no way possible that happens. If anything, he may match that number, which I highly doubt, or he's going to go somewhere in the top 3. If he goes top 3, that will put him between 52 and 55. If they put him where I think he belongs, that will put him right below Lamar Jackson, right above Jalen Hurts, would have put him at 51 and a half, 52. I think that's the number we're looking at. And I think he's going to sign 5 years if he does sign. The only reason Dak Prescott signed a 4-year contract is because of salary caps. Him and his management were smart. They looked at the landscape of the NFL and they saw that in year 4, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert would all sign big contracts. And they did not want to wait till year 5 for Dak to sign it. They wanted to do it right after those guys signed their contracts to make sure when they went into negotiations, they were right there when those contracts were at their highest. So I feel like the reason Dak signed a 4-year deal is to make sure he can ride that wave with Burrow, Herbert, Allen, and Lamar Jackson. And Dom saying Burrow has the highest average percent of the cap. Let's just say Dak topped that percent in not 23. That's 57.5. Yeah, Dak shouldn't get 60. That's a good point. There are different measurables you can look at in terms of how to determine a player's contract. Percentage of the cap is one of them. Honestly, I don't think the Cowboys use that. I really think looking at how contracts have been structured in the past, I really feel like they go by top 3, top 5, and they try to make sure they're in their range. I would just be I think it would be highly unlikely that the Cowboys would make Dak the highest paid quarterback. They didn't make Diggs the highest paid corner. They didn't make D-Law the highest paid defensive end. Tyron Smith was never the highest paid tackle. Zach Martin is a different scenario. Zach Martin's one of the greatest of all time. He was the highest paid guard for like an hour until Quentin Nelson signed his contract. So if you're calling Dak one of the greatest ever, I'd say yeah, they let Dak reset the market. But if you're just calling Dak a good to great quarterback, which I think all of us thinks he is, he's going to get good to great money, which would be right there along the lines with the top 5 to the top 7. Now, if Dak decides he wants to get 4 years again, I think that number is going to be even lower. I think 4 years, $60 million or $240 million, I think that's completely out of the question. And that's not saying that because I don't want him to get paid, because I want players to get paid. I'm saying that because the mechanisms of the salary cap and how this team has shown to structure contracts in the past, they've never done that. Terrence Steele, Jalen Smith, Jason Witten. I'm just throwing names out there. None of these guys, except for Zach Martin, have ever reset the market for their position. And because of that, I don't think Dak's going to be the next one to do it. All right, so that's pretty much all I have for today. We're at 1 hour, 4 minutes. For everybody who stuck with me, thank you guys for tuning in. I know it was a lot to digest, but I feel like for me, it was something important that needed to get put out there, because you're going to hear a lot of misconceptions through the media, either grassroots media or national media, trying to sensationalize the fan base to get clicks. I just want to put this out there so you guys can understand a little bit about how the salary cap works, how numbers are determined, what dead cap means, how restructures work, so that when you hear somebody say, well, if a player restructures his contract, he's doing the team a favor. No, he's not doing the team a favor. If a player is a post-June 1 cut, we're going to get that money immediately. No, that money doesn't come till after June 1st. If a player signs an extension, I didn't talk about extensions, but if a player signs an extension, those numbers don't go into effect until the next year. But that's another topic for another day. But what I want you to know is when a player signs a new contract, the first year, it's always going to be a cheap year for that team. That's why it's beneficial for teams to pay high-priced players and give them new contracts. So I really appreciate you guys who stuck with me and got something out of it. Next week, we're going to do a free agency show. So we're going to officially start kicking out free agency leading up until the actual first day of the league year. So next week, I'm going to go through all, I believe, 12 of our unrestricted free agents. I'm going to tell you what I think their projected contract is based off of doing my research. And then you guys are going to tell me whether you think we sign this guy or we keep him. And if we say we're going to sign him, we're going to put it into my spreadsheet. We're going to see how much that affects the salary cap. So we're going to build upon ourselves through this show all the way up until the draft. So I appreciate you guys for joining us, for you guys that stuck with us. Hope you guys learned something. Hope you guys will come back and join me next week. We are every Wednesday night at 8:30 Central Standard Time with the Fifth Quarter Podcast. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you go find Bluff City Cowboys. I definitely appreciate all that support on my path to getting to 1,000. Thank you guys who left the great questions and great comments. For you guys talking about running backs, we're going to start talking about that more and more, starting with our running back and then going into the available running backs in free agency. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So I hope you guys continue to stick with me. I'm always going to try to be informative. I'm not going to try to give you guys clickbait stuff because I respect the knowledge of this viewership to throw a bunch of fluff at you guys just to fill time. Everything's always going to be researched and it's always going to be thought-provoking. So thank you guys for joining me. Really appreciate all your support. And as always, let's go Cowboys. Even in the offseason, let's go Cowboys. I will see you guys next Wednesday at 8:30 Central Standard Time for the Fifth Quarter Podcast.